So here's the thing, Yukong is very strong, but she can be very difficult to build around because of two very important factors. Number one being speed, and the other one being energy regeneration. But why, you might ask? Well, this is because of her core gameplay function. This is going to be her skill emboldening salvo. When you use this, you're going to get 2 stacks of a very important buff called roaring bowstrings. And if you want to keep track of these things in the game, during combat, you'll have a nice little indicator down here by her ultimate gauge to show you how many of these strings you still have left. Now, while you have these strings, you're going to give a giant attack buff to everyone in your party, but every time an ally's turn ends, you're going to lose 1 stack of this buff. But it doesn't end there, because if you use her ultimate while she does have stacks of bowstrings, in addition to that attack buff, she will also grant crit rate and increase crit damage as long as she maintains at least 1 stack of the bowstring. And this is why she might be a little bit difficult for you to use at first glance, and this is because you need to have the proper speed for the kind of team you're using her in. Because if you're not controlling who's going after your Yukong, you don't really know who's going to be getting these attack, crit chance, and crit damage buffs. For instance, in something like a Seele hyper-focused team, you want this character to put up bowstrings while Seele's taking her turn. But if you're using her with someone like Clara, for example, you want her to be able to put up bowstrings and ultimate right before all the enemies go, so this affects all of the counters that your Clara is going to do. And so if you just take Yukong and just try to throw her into any given party without keeping in mind with this very important fact, you're going to be very underwhelmed by this unit. But on top of all the very nice buffs that she does give, her ultimate actually has a pretty hard-hitting multiplier. But there is one downside to it, and that it's very expensive, and it costs 130 energy, which means that if you're using her with absolutely no energy recharge right away, even if you use your skill 4 times in a row, you're still going to be missing 10 energy, so you can use your ultimate again. But thankfully, she's going to have a trace that's going to allow you to get that last 10 energy, even if you're not building her with any energy recharge at all. And this is going to be her final one that you unlock, Majestus, which is going to give her 2 energy every time any ally takes an action, as long as you have stacks of bowstring. And this is any action. It counts for Surgeon's turns from Seele, normal actions that you would take on your normal turn, and it also does, in fact, count ultimate usage. So as long as you can get this to proc 5 times, you're going to get that last missing 10 energy you're going to need on your Yukong to use her ultimate after 4 skills. And one more awesome thing about Yukong is actually going to be her technique ability to use outside of combat. This one's actually very useful because not only does it give you movement speed for when you're running around the battle, but if you engage an enemy while you have this buff up, which is a pretty lengthy buff, you're going to start the battle with 2 stacks of roaring bowstring already. Now, even though we've only had access to her for a little bit of time, I've been using her quite a bit. We've been testing a lot of things out. Energy regeneration is going to be something that's going to need to be fine-tuned. It's going to be greatly dependent on the team you're using her with, as well as the gear you have, and also if you do or do not have Eidolon 2, because Eidolon 2, which we'll get to all the Eidolons in a minute, but I'm bringing it up right now, is additional energy regeneration. It's going to give you 5 energy every time an ally fills their ultimate gauge, and this can be triggered once per ally for a total of 15 energy. And then after your Yukong uses her ultimate, she's going to be able to get 15 energy this way once again. But like I said, energy is a different beast. We'll tackle that in a minute. But for generic build guidelines, the Wastelander set, also known as the Imaginary set, is going to be pretty great here. It gives you an imaginary damage buff of 10%. And then even though she doesn't have any debuffs in her kit at all, if you do use her to break in an imaginary weak enemy, you are going to have a debuff on them, and it's going to be the Imprison debuff, which is going to give you a crit rate 10% increase, as well as 20% increased crit damage. And if you ever paired with another Nihility character, such as, say, Silverwolf, you're always going to get that debuff up there as well for the free 10 crit rate. And then if you do use her to imprison an enemy by breaking their break gauge, you will get that imprisonment effect of 20% crit damage as well. But if you don't have it, then don't worry. Just throw some Musketeer stuff on her. It's going to help you get a little bit of extra attack. And then that speed 6% might help you speed tune her appropriately to go right in front of your damage dealer. But as she is a Harmony character, the win set's typically good on them. But for Yukong, it can either help you or hurt you. And let me tell you, if you're not into speed tuning and combat calculation for how much action value you are going to be putting out on average throughout an XYZ determined cycle for something like the Memories of Chaos, this set's probably going to hurt you way more than it's going to help you on this character. However, if you are a number cruncher extraordinaire, this can help you speed tune her exactly the way you want throughout every cycle of any given encounter. So keep that one in mind if you're a big brain mathematician. And before we get into planner ornaments right here, there's going to be a unique setup that I've been messing with that is a little bit of a mathematician big brain thing. I'm going to want you to tell me what you think about it. And there's going to be a couple great ones here. So the Space Stealing Station is going to give you that nice attack bonus. She does have a large attack percent bonus in her own kit, but this is going to be something, if you have it laying around, is going to be pretty easy for you to use. You do have to be above 120 speed for this to activate the second part for that full 24% attack bonus though, so keep that in mind as well. If you wanted to be more of a traditional support and just give some attack increase to the rest of your party, including herself, then you can go ahead and use Fleet of the Ageless. Both of these come from the 3rd level of Simulated Universe, and so you could pick up either one of these and mix and match them to get the proper link rope and planar sphere that you want on your Yukong. Now the last set here is going to be the sprightly set, and this is going to be a setup that you can use for 2 very specific things. The more generalized version takes advantage of the action forward 40% upon entering combat. You can use this set and have this set on a couple of your other support characters to make sure that your Yukong's always going to be speed tuned appropriately for you. But just be careful with it, because this set could be really good for you or really bad for you depending on the order that you want your characters to go in. And to take full advantage of this setup, making sure that she's pushing forward ahead of your damage dealers, you might also need to put this set on some other Harmony character who's even faster than your Yukong is. So your first Harmony character goes, and then Yukong, and then both of your damage dealers that don't have this set. And like I said, if you're a big brain mathematician, you can also combo this with the win set, so you have the start of the battle and the rest of the battle all planned out as far as action forward pushing goes. So your Yukong's always in the perfect spot for everything that you're doing. Now, this energy regeneration 5% is going to lead into a little bit of a big gateway of information. So before we get into that, let's talk about a little bit of a light cone action here. Now, the best one is always going to be battle isn't over, and this is going to double down, triple down on how important it is to have her speed tuned properly. And this light cone is going to be very good on her. Now, first and foremost, it has that 10% energy regeneration rate, and this can help you hit a critical mass of energy regeneration in an ER setup that allows you to get your ultimate every 3 skill uses instead of every 4. But on top of that, it's also going to have this 30% damage bonus for the character that goes right after you. Now, typically it's very hard at a non-Bronya team or a non-Bronya character to take full advantage of a light cone like this, because Bronya just makes them go after you, but you're already going to have to speed tune your team appropriately for Yukong anyway. And so once you have that figured out, your Yukong is going to go right before your damage dealer. You're going to be getting that damage bonus up on the character you need it on anyway. And then obviously, the last but definitely not least, well, you're going to be getting that skill point back every single time you use an ultimate on your Yukong. And this helps very much, not only in boosting the damage of your party, but because you can get your ult every 3 skills instead of 4, and you get 1 skill point back. Instead of her costing you 4 skill points for an ultimate, she will now cost you 2 skill points for an ultimate. Having how many skill points that it takes to use her is a great thing, and is by far her best light cone. Other light cones though that we can use is past and future, which is the worst version of Bronya. You can have her speed tune like we just talked about to make sure you're always getting this damage bonus on the correct character, your main damage dealer in your party. You could also use something like Carve the Moon, as it has that attack and crit damage, and it does have some energy regen on it. However, the energy regen of this card is going to be random. You get 1 of the 3 buffs every single time she takes her turn, and so it's very, very difficult to plan around how much energy regen you're going to need to build and what you can actually aim for and utilize with this buff up. I was trying to crunch the number to see if there was an average amount of things that needed to proc, an average amount of skills, an average amount of teammates that are utilizing skills and taking action, so she gains 2 energy every time they take an action underneath bowstrings. And ultimately, the thing I came up with is it's really just not worth it in so many situations. But there is a breakpoint that I'll tell you right now in case you're a big nerd and you want to hear it. So if you get this card up to 8 to 9% energy regeneration rate, you have her full setup on 2P Sprightly for 5% more energy regeneration, and you also have access to, and now I know Eidolon coverage is pretty boring, but hear me out. She's a free character coming on 1.2, so if you already have her right now, it means you're going to get an additional one a couple of months from now when 1.2 comes out. And she does have a very big Eidolon, which we talked about previously. So the first one here is going to give you 10 speed at the start of the battle for all party members, which is pretty decent. But the big bad one here is Eidolon 2 Skyward Command. This is going to give you up to 15 energy, and getting the 15 energy from this Eidolon is a very important breakpoint, because with this Eidolon and 5% energy regeneration, which you can get from the 2P Sprightly setup, you're able to refill your ultimate meter with just 3 skills as long as you have up to 10 actions taken during the use of 3 of your bowstring. 3 gives you free levels of your skill, which is going to increase the attack percent amount that you get, and then 5 is going to increase your ultimate, which is going to give you a higher damage amount, but also give you larger amounts of crit chance and crit damage from that bonus. Eidolon 4 is going to give you 30% more damage with your ultimate because you're going to have roaring bowstrings up when you use it. It's the entire point of the character. And then 6 is an extremely amazing one where every time you use your ultimate, it's going to give you a stack of roaring bowstring again, which makes her even more skill point efficient because 2 ultimates is basically giving you the equivalent in 2 stacks of roaring bowstring, which is an entire skill point worth of a skill. So not only is that worth 1 skill point, but if you're on the Bronya card, every 2 ults you do also gives you a skill point. And yeah, that combination makes every 2 ultimates you use basically be the value of 2 entire skill points being refunded. There are a ton of ways to use this character as she's a fantastic buffer. You do want to make sure that when you're using her though, you're getting the most value out of that skill. Go in and speed tune your team properly. She does work well with other characters who need that little bit of extra help getting extra crit chance and getting extra crit damage. Something like a sub DPS Silver Wolf or giving crit chance and crit damage to your already support high attack buffed Tingyun. All of these things are very good with your Yukong. We talked about it earlier with someone like Clara, where you make sure that you're speed tuned properly, you get that attack buff, and you drop the Yukon ultimate right before all the enemies go. So every single time Clara attacks, she's gonna have that 70% attack, 30% crit chance, 60% crit damage buff every time she counters. So I've been having fun with her. Let me know what you're doing with her down below, or if you're waiting until 1.2, and I'll see you guys in the next one.